on the Jews. Don't blame it on the sunshine. I don't blame it on the moonlight. I don't blame it on the good times.
Hey everyone, Irishman Rants here. I make fun of it so you don't have to. If I can name one influential and controversial skeptic that has definitely brought the skeptic YouTube market into the mainstream, it would have to be Jim. Now you might not know who Jim is, and that's because he goes by many names. You might know him best as Internet Aristocrat. If you don't know who Internet Aristocrat is, he's the guy who made a video about the controversy involving Zoe Quinn allegedly sleeping with multiple people to get good gaming press. And then his video was shared by the Baldwin from Firefly. Baldwin then created the hashtag Gamergate. And then because of Gamergate's backlash, we got SJWs getting control of everything, in which now there's a backlash to that backlash, leading to President Trump being elected president to elevate the anti-PC people. So, Jim, if you're watching this, you gave us Trump.
I'm a very, very bad Hitler.
Right now he goes by the name MisterMetokur, though by the time I edit this video, considering it'll probably be 2 months or something, he'll probably have changed that name and deleted his entire channel, making this video entirely pointless. I actually watch a few of MisterMetokur's videos from time to time, just to remind myself what high-quality skeptic content looks like. But recently he started doing a video series that really caught my attention. And that was his That Guy with the Glasses series. A retrospective on all of the lolcows that have been a part of Channel Awesome / That Guy with the Glasses since its inception in 2007. I myself became a Channel Awesome fan back in 2012. I stopped being a Channel Awesome fan around, well,
my job's done. I hit the on button. Alright, catch those fish, boys!
And I'll admit, while I do have some respect for the website and for many of its content creators, it does have its fair share of lolcows. In fact, I would say more than half of the people on that website are lolcows, or at least have some dirt on them. So I'd be very interested in seeing episodes on Todd in the Shadows, or Dan Olson, or the Spoody one, or even Linkara, because I always hear he's a lolcow, but I never really see it. And so now there's 5 episodes so far, and I can honestly say that the That Guy with the Glasses series that MisterMetokur is doing is one of the most disappointing things I've seen this year. What started out as something that was a genuinely good look back at all the lolcows on the site quickly devolved into a MisterMetokur video series. Now, originally I wasn't even gonna make this video, I was only just considering it, you know. I held a poll on my Twitter account to see if people would be interested in me doing a MisterMetokur video. The most popular choice at that point, since only around 5 or 6 people were voting, was choice 3 optional, which was a joke choice. That was until one of MisterMetokur's fans tattled on me to MisterMetokur, saying that I was going to be making this video series attacking him. And what was his response? Don't care. You know, I don't like MisterMetokur, but I will say that that was a pretty good response. He's willing to dish it out, and he's also able to hear other people dishing it out. So, you know, good on him. His fans, however, were freaking the fuck out. I'll admit, though, some of them did some pretty good roasts.
'Cause I'd rather spend eternity eating shards of broken glass than spend one more minute with you.
There was even one person who just kept going on and on about trans people and saying I was a dickgirl lover and mentioning that I was an aspie.
'Cause I'd rather get 100,000 paper cuts on my face than spend one more minute with you.
Which, you know, if you're trying to convince me to like MisterMetokur and to back off, maybe don't keep attacking me constantly. And because of this poll being shared, what would have been just 6 or 7 or 5 votes onto this one measly poll ended up being 94. And it was a tie at the end. So now I'm going to be doing this video because, well, trying to shut me down backfired. And I also got a couple more views on my videos because of it. So, good job, idiots. I'm going to be reviewing these on a 1 to 10 scale by how much I like them. And let me just tell you right off the bat that the first couple videos, they're not that bad. This is the That Guy with the Glasses series.
You don't pull a mask off an old Lone Ranger, and you don't mess around with Jim.
So the first episode is on the Nostalgia Critic. Well, obviously. I mean, who are you going to start on? Little Miss Gamer? Nah. You're going to do it on the Big Cheese, Mr. Douglas Walker. Now, this episode is actually really, really good. Like, honestly, I would recommend this video to people. And I, again, don't like MisterMetokur. The video goes over the sort of downfall of Doug Walker, if you want to call it that, of his rise as a content producer for Nostalgia Critic, and then around the time of 2012 when he decided to kill off the character and move into demo reel, which was a total failure. And also his sort of troubles with Indiegogo, including Pop Quiz Hotshot.
We got these at a placemat at a local truck stop. We just made them really big and put a picture from The Shining at the beginning of it.
And also the sort of change in style for the Nostalgia Critic. Honestly, if you're a fan of Channel Awesome and the Nostalgia Critic specifically, I would say that this video would give you the best perspective as to what people who don't like Channel Awesome and who don't like Nostalgia Critic think. Because this basically sums everything up. We feel like the videos have gone too sketch heavy. We feel like the Indiegogo was a bit scammy. And that we felt like demo reel was complete and utter dog shit, which I think even fans of the Nostalgia Critic today would probably admit. I will say that it's a bit weird that MisterMetokur is making these sort of assumptions about what Doug thinks. Like, he's assuming that he wanted to kill off the character. I mean, of course, maybe it wasn't like Mike Michaud told him. It was like, you gotta get me the money so I can buy XP, or whatever. I don't play school shooters. And it gives off this vibe where he just seems to be a shell of his former self, and doesn't really care about what he's doing. Which, I have to disagree, because I've actually met Doug twice. And both times I met him, he seemed like a very happy person. Like, he was very happy with what he's doing. And you know, I don't like his newer content, but if he's happy with what he's doing, then go for it. It's like Yoga Hosers. Yeah, people think it's a shit movie, but it's obvious that the people making it had a lot of fun. Then again, knowing depression myself, I can tell that there are people who are really good at hiding their depression. So maybe he's a sad clown. But overall, I give this a 9 out of 10. It was a really good video. It details the history of Doug Walker's fall from grace. And I would say if you're a fan of Channel Awesome, give it a watch so you can know what people who don't like the Channel Awesome crew think. It's a really good video. Alright, moving on to the next one.
You don't pull a mask off an old Lone Ranger, and you don't mess around with Jim.
Does MisterMetokur seriously pronounce Adele as Adelaide?
Aw, Obscurus Lupa hates me now too. Gonna have to bust out the Adelaide playlist for the breakup.
Okay, you gotta stop listening to the Italian disco, MisterMetokur. Learn your fucking pronunciations. It's Adele, not Adelaide. You're thinking of the words of the Kekostani brethren. Fucking normies, get out. Wow, the Spoonie video is actually way better than I remember. Who knew? So, this video details Spoonie's rise to stardom with That Guy with the Glasses, Blister Thumbs, and the Spoonie experiment, and his downfall around 2012 with the Jesu Otaku rape controversy, and then the final nail in the coffin with his Patreon. It's a very, very detailed video. And actually, I'm going to give it a compliment on its technical aspects, because it actually has some really good editing to it. Like, it has a clip of Spooning with Spoonie, right before it gets into talking about the rape controversy. Like, that's actually pretty clever. I think what really hits home in this video is just all the anger that you can hear in Jim's voice. Like, you could tell that he was a big fan of Spoonie back in the day. And he's just really disgusted with the person that his hero has become. So, it makes it all that more powerful. He also uses so much evidence to back up his claims, which, is better than the last video, which he made these suggestions about what Doug Walker was thinking at the time and his motivations, but doesn't really have anything to back it up. But here he has evidence of his tweets, his Twitter history, the messages left by patrons, his Amazon wish list being updated more than his Patreon. It's just so fucking detailed. Again, if you're a fan of Spoonie 1 right now, I would recommend looking at this video and seeing just why people don't like Spoonie at this point in time. I would say the only minor flaw is that he kind of waves away the whole rape joke controversy as being like, oh, he just made a rape joke. What's it to him?
Nearly 1 month from the initial tweet that Noah put up, which was a joke response to Jesu Otaku, Obscurus Lupa gets into the conversation and dredges it back up, and this helps to ignite a firestorm.
But I mean, come on. Spoonie made a rape joke to Jesu Otaku, a person who, at the time, was in a relationship with Nash. And he was talking about, hey, if things don't work out between you and him, I'll chain you to a pipe in my basement and love you. My way. Like, how do you not get fired for that tweet? I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 10 out of 10. I actually was gonna give it a 9 before I rewatched it right now, but now I'm giving it a 10.
A 10! A fucking 10!
It's an incredibly well-made video. It's very well-backed. It has a lot of evidence to back up its claims. It's very well-written, I must say. And now is when things get shitty.
You don't pull a mask off an old Lone Ranger, and you don't mess around with Jim.
This is where it all went wrong. So, the past 2 episodes of this series were about the rise and fall of that guy with the glasses members, specifically Doug and Spoonie. Now, Linkara's episode is about how he failed upwards, and it starts out really well. Like, I actually laughed at the beginning of this episode, like in the first 12 minutes.
There were many characters that happened to join him in his effort to run away from crimes and not interfere in any way whatsoever. You had people like Ant-Man, and Tinfoil Hat Girl, NASCAR driver with a vagina mouth, generic woman holding up a car, generic woman unable to hold up a car, the retarded brother of the Flash, and One Quarter Man, who's missing 3/4 of his body.
And it also brings up something I never knew about, which is Linkara used to be a webcomic creator. And he was terrible at it. Like, he made basically the poor man's Sonichu. Not kidding. Look up The Lightbringer. It's funny. But basically, he was this web creator who ended up being mocked by Something Awful and numerous websites, and so he decided to become a critic of comic books, basically becoming a critic of the thing that he failed at. It's like if you're a movie reviewer who used to be making movies but was really bad at it, so now you mock movies for a living. It's honestly a decent story about somebody who is failing upwards, who wanted to do something with his life but instead had to settle for making fun of what his original passion was. It would be a good episode if it ended there, because the thing about it is that Linkara isn't a failure right now. Unlike Spoonie and Doug, he's actually doing really well, and Mr. Metokur brings that up.
One stark contrast between the two of them is that Linkara's numbers, unlike Spoonie's, aren't going down. They've actually been fairly steady as far as views, subs, and income go.
The rest of the video is about his awkward interactions with crew members and with people in real life.
So, did you learn your lesson?
Which is okay. It gives you a perspective on his personality, but what does that have to do with him being a failure and a lolcow? Then it talks about his Atop the Fourth Wall movie, which is Funny because he brings up the IMDb page that I created. No, really, I added that page to IMDb. And, okay, that's fine if he wants to criticize it for being just a generic critic movie. But what does that have to do with him failing? And then it gets into the controversy when people found out that he liked to beat it off to she-males. And this was before he was in a relationship with a trans woman, which was Iron Liz.
Where does he get those wonderful toys?
Japan.
What?
Japan. He imports them from Japan.
That's a terrible joke to end the show with.
But it's my only line!
Don't you forget about me. Don't.
Okay, yeah, that was a bit embarrassing for him, especially with all the weird fetishes he had, but what does that have to do with him being a failure and a lolcow? He ended up admitting to his fetishes and didn't really care after that. It didn't affect his career at all. It didn't affect his image. I mean, I guess it would because he was supposed to be the squeaky clean reviewer, technically. But he's still doing very well for himself. It hasn't really hurt him at all. Like, how does this make him a failure and a lolcow? Funny enough, Mr. Metokur actually said in the previous episode, at the tail end of it, that he was going to make like an hour-long episode of Linkara. When really, he could have just made a 12-minute episode, because that's the only thing that's relevant. It's disappointing because while the previous two episodes were really good examples of how Doug Walker and Noah Antweiler failed, this episode just loses that theme of failure. Sure, Lewis failed at being a webcomic creator and now mocks the medium that he loves, but how does that relate to the previous two episodes? It's just listing off controversies. Like with the Spoonie episode, it marked the two instances where his career started to go down the toilet. And the Doug episode did that too, to an extent. This episode just talks about one instance where he became a lolcow, and then two instances where he had some embarrassing moments. Why did you need to bring up the fact that he had a thing for transgender people? That's actually a pretty good question. It has nothing to do with the fact that he is a lolcow because he made a bad webcomic and failed upwards.
How many times have you had somebody harass you by saying, "Are you a boy or a girl?" You know what, shitlord? I'm whatever Zim Self decides today. You don't tell Z what to do. Zim Zap, Zoobity Bop.
You know, I don't know why Mr. Metokur would bring up the fact that that Linkara likes trans people.
Jaden, for his part, would show up for a few minutes each day and basically look like a confused, genderqueer transsexual individual who doesn't know what the fuck is going on.
You know, I just can't put my finger on it.
Now take that image, that personification of rage incarnate, and put him in a pretty dress. Because deep down, he wants to be a little girl. I'll pull off a diamond heist, but I'm not going to kill my coworkers because I want to become a transsexual ghost girl. That's just retarded. Even further than that, he goes into the fact that he is a transsexual, a cross-dresser. If you listen to his language when he's talking about it, he almost sounds upset that they never noticed, almost like he was leaving hints out that he was disturbed, that there was something wrong with him, and that he was hoping they would call him on it.
I guess you could say cross-dressing, which is something you never knew I did.
Cross-dresser.
The more I wore girl clothes, the more I felt like that was who I was. Like I felt like I was a girl, and I found out that I was.
Transsexual, a cross-dresser.
I was never meant to be a guy. I was just a female soul trapped in a man's body my whole life.
Transsexual, a cross-dresser.
As time went on, I thought like Rachel. Like I thought my name was always Rachel. But I don't know.
Transsexual, a cross-dresser. Transsexual, a cross-dresser. Randy Stairs is a transsexual brony that believed he could become a fucking cartoon ghost. He is a walking punchline. He wanted to become a ghost girl and paint himself with latex paint, put on a dress, and play pretend. Fuck Randy Stairs.
Maybe it'll come to me. This has to be one of the biggest reasons I'm not a fan of Mr. Metokur. Because his transphobia just seeps into his videos. Like, he loved the fact that Linkara had a controversy involving being appreciative sexually of transgender people. Because he hates transgender people. He will always go at the chance to say tranny or transsexual, never really transgender. He's probably said it, but I'm not including it in my compilation for bias. But, and who cares if he has a thing for the green M&M or for Muppet Gangbangs or whatever that shit was. It's just his private life, and it didn't affect his work at all, it didn't affect his career at all. It has literally fuck all to do with the topic of this video series. It's supposed to be about their failures or why they're lolcows, and it doesn't have anything to do with that because he admitted to being into this sort of kinky shit, and he still has a career now. It's just that people kind of remember that he's into kinky shit. Who gives a single fuck? This is a terrible episode. It starts out really well, and then it just slowly dives into being about absolutely nothing but just talking about how much of an embarrassing person Linkara is. It just turns into just kink shaming at some point. Like, even the extreme difference in theme is brought up in the Angry Joe video.
In Doug's case, it's a creator who wanted to escape his own creation, who wanted to branch out and do new things, and in order to do that, felt it necessary to disassociate himself with the thing that the fans loved the most, the price he paid for it, and his inevitable return to having to do it. In the case of Noah, it's a content creator who was on top of the world, making thousands and thousands of dollars with a very large fan base, all looking forward to his next creation. But due to his own arrogance, his own hubris, and his own mistreatment of his audience, he saw his popularity and his profits begin to sink. It's a man who shot himself in the foot through his mistreatment of those that adored him the most. And in Lewis's case, if Lewis has a cautionary tale within his video, it should be that you never, ever, ever create a username for a porn website because that will come back to haunt you one day. The last thing you want as you cross that 1 million subscriber threshold is for information to come out that you really, really, really want to fuck the shit out of that green M&M.
Do you see what I mean? Like, the previous two videos had a consistent theme, and then Linkara's video happened, and there was nothing. I wanted to know why Linkara is regarded as a lolcow. The only thing I knew about was his, big hate boner for Adblock. That's about it. And yeah, I learned about the Lightbringer, but that didn't seem to have any real, impact on the video. It's so inconsistent with the video series and with the video itself. It doesn't work. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to give this a 4 out of 10. It has no real theme other than to shame Linkara for liking transgender people sexually. And while it starts out with a decent narrative about how he was this comic creator who failed and now he has to make fun of, for a living, comics. It's quite a sad story, and it would work if that was the main focus. So, I'm sorry, this is where it just goes into a tailspin of stupid. And it continues into the Angry Joe video.
You don't pull a mask off an old Lone Ranger and you don't mess around with Jim.
My intention was to, again, offer a retrospective look at his journey from an unknown individual to somebody who has nearly 3 million subs. Those videos that he put out, his angry reviews, and how that attracted an audience.
Well, that sounds interesting.
But due to recent events that have transpired in the last 2 weeks, I feel it best, rather than to do a purely retrospective look at Angry Joe, to instead take a look at the current events surrounding him.
Of course. Once again, not a really good video. Instead of doing a retrospective like the previous 3 videos, Jim decides to change it up a bit and only do recent events in Joe's lolcowiness. In this case, Joe deciding to get back at his fans who were criticizing him for not making enough angry reviews. And I actually don't think Joe was in the right here. He was not really addressing criticism very well. He was referring to a lot of his critics as trolls, and it didn't look good for him. But that's not the point. The thing about this video is that I think it just drones. Like, it just drones on and on. Like, I would have been so much more interested if there was an Angry Joe retrospective, and this part was just included, because from what I can understand, there's a lot to handle with Joe. But instead, it just goes on and on and on, and it's really boring after a while. You just start to tune out. I swear to God, Jim just starts repeating stuff over and over again.
And when you look at the metrics, when you look at the ratings between the first video he put up, the vacation one, and this video, you'll see a clear difference, and that difference has to do with how he addressed the situation. Now, like I had said earlier, when you look at the metrics between that first video and that second video, there's a noticeable difference. And that really comes down to approach.
It's honestly not a very well scripted video, if it has a script. And I really feel it hurts the video by the fact that it's not retrospective. It would have been so much more powerful. And also at the beginning he promises that he'll have some moments to look back on, to give more perspective on the current situation with Joe. He never does that. He only just shows clips as, interludes. And that's about it. It's not very good video. It's not okay, it is pretty terrible. But it's not awful like the previous video with Linkara. And yeah, it does have a bit of a cautionary tale, like with the first two videos, but it's not really powerful enough because it keeps repeating itself all the fucking time.
But rather than addressing how upset they are and why they're upset and explaining his rationale behind it, he simply refers to them as entitled, as a group of haters that exist on the internet. He's once again assuming that anybody that has a critique of him is part of this hater group, this cabal of individuals that are just looking to fuck with him.
Honestly, I give it a 5 out of 10 because it almost works. It's better than the Linkara video, but it just... Whoa, it's boring. At the time of this filming, there's a 5th episode, but I have to go to college tomorrow, so I should probably get my beauty sleep. So, yeah, I'm going back to sleep. A part 2 coming soon when there's no more episodes.
You don't pull the mask off the old Lone Ranger, and you don't mess around with Slim.
Transsexual, a cross-dresser.